If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, but let's get right to it. I think it was something like 10 million people subscribed to the launch of Disney Plus. And of course, I heard rumors and everything and seeing online that it was crashing and some people couldn't get on. They had a little bit of a rough start. But while everybody was going completely bonkers for The Mandalorian, my wife and I were in the hospital, and our little girl came into this world. So we have a new baby girl, Abigail, and we're extremely happy. So I spent the rest of the week in the hospital, and so I didn't get to see The Mandalorian, and the second episode's now out, so I was able to watch them back to back. So while everyone else got their videos out and everything, I had better things to do. Let's just be honest. Anyway, I did get to see both episodes, and I have to say, I felt like this was the Star Wars that we should have gotten from the get-go. You know, as much as I love Rogue One. I thought it was a fantastic movie. Solo was okay, but it wasn't great. The Force Awakens I loved, but I hated The Last Jedi, and I don't know if the Rise of Skywalker is gonna fill any kind of void there. But I feel like the future of Star Wars shouldn't be on the big screen. It should be on the small screen, because obviously so far 2 episodes in, they're really getting this right. Now, from what I understand, just like the Obi-Wan series that's going to be start filming, I think, in July, this was supposed to be the Boba Fett series. But what happened was, when they had the misfire with Solo, a Star Wars story. Oh, and before I go any further, Lucas Story Film Group, just stop. You know, when you did the whole a Star Wars story, like, people wouldn't know if you made a movie called Boba Fett what the hell it was about, or like Solo. Like, everyone knew that was a Han Solo movie. If you saw the previews, you see Chewbacca, you see the Millennium Falcon, you get it, okay? But you don't have to say Star Wars story. And obviously, you know, that didn't work out right. And with The Mandalorian, it's not episode 1 or episode 2, it's chapter 1, chapter 2, Lucas Story Film Group. Guys, come on, man. You don't have to try so hard to be something else, okay? It's episode 1 and episode 2. So that being said, I love that this really did feel like a Western the first 2 episodes, okay? I love the fact that you didn't really hear the Mandalorian talk at all until his first line, which I absolutely loved. I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. I mean, that really sets the tone of the show. And when he said it, my hair stood up on my arms, and I was like, oh shit, this is going to be good. And of course, you know, you get the little trickster guy, whoever he was. I had said this before in other videos about The Mandalorian, that I thought, I had a hunch that he had his own carbonite chamber on the Razor Crest, I guess is the name of the ship. I love how in the writing, they give you little nuggets, like when they said, oh, a Razor Crest, this is pre-Empire, right? So obviously, like, this is a type of ship that would have been around during the Phantom Menace, or Revenge of the Sith, or, you know, Attack of the Clones. And it looks similar to a lot of the ship designs from back then. So I just love that they said little things like that back from the Empire. So I love the opening line. I knew it was great. When the speeder pulls up after they're trying to get back to the Razor on the ice planet, I love the first speeder comes up with an R2 unit on it, and he's like, no droids. I was like, okay, so this guy doesn't like robots, or doesn't like the droids, which is great because it gives him a little bit of a personality trait. You know, almost like Han Solo wasn't a big fan of droids either, you know? And I enjoyed that. I love the throwbacks with, like, having engine trouble. You get that that's from the Millennium Falcon, or like any ship that seems to be losing power from a hyperdrive or from their engines makes the same noise. I love it. The giant walrus eel type creature that jumps out of the ice and clamped onto the razor, fantastic. I mean, original, but yet grounded because it's like a walrus, which would be at like, the Arctic in the ice and things like that. But I mean, again, it's like they're giving you exactly what you wanted, something fresh, something new, but something similar. Um, there was a lot of little comedy in there. I like that the comedy's not coming from the Mandalorian. So the comedy is coming from supporting characters. Like IG-11, uh, played by Taiki Watiki or whatever. I think that's how you say his name. Uh, love the comedy coming from that. Uh, when they were doing the whole competing and then decided to team up to go in at the end of that first episode. All that stuff was fantastic. And I love that the IG-11 kept opening up his his chest going, deactivate, or self-destruction, whatever it was. It was, what are you talking about? He's like, that's my programming. If I feel like I'm cornered or whatever, I just self-implant his thermal detonators in his chest, and he keeps like closing it, open it, close it, open, close it. And the Mandalorian's just, it felt very, especially in those scenes, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. See, that's the thing. Like, I kept seeing a lot of other movies in this that inspired it. Westerns like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. In the beginning, there's a lot of nods because this takes place 5 years after Jedi. So there's a lot of nods like the Salacious B. Crumb, the little bird from Return of the Jedi. Obviously it's a race of those, and some of them are in cages in a market, and one is being skewered. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, all right, that's funny. Um, uh, they kind of give nods to there's something about Jon Favreau and his love for the Star Wars holiday special, which I saw as a little kid. I was born in 1975. I think it aired in 78. It was a special on television, and there are these little nods to that series throughout, especially like the first appearance of Boba Fett was in a cartoon during the holiday special. And, he rode this dinosaur looking creature, and there was a nod to it when the Mandalorian is talking to the one character that Nick Nolte's voicing, which the animatronics on his character, I'm trying to see, what is the character's name? Okay, yeah, so Nick Nolte's playing this character named Quill, I guess, Quile. The animatronics are great. If it's CGI, I'll be shocked. But that's the other thing that I loved about it. Other than atmospheres like around them, the mountainscapes and things like that, everything looks like practical effects, or as much practical effects as they can do, because the show could, at $15 million an episode, it's really expensive as it is. So if you could do everything in camera, so the animatronics on that Krill character, who is an Ognot, the Ognots were in The Empire Strikes Back when Han Solo is going into Carbonite. They all ran like the machines and stuff. They look kind of like pig creatures. At least I think that's what this character is. And it's nice to see that Jawas and stuff like that, they're all on other, they're not just indigenous to Tatooine. Like these characters can be anywhere. And so I like Nick Nolte's character, but one of the things that he said, going back to the holiday special, he referenced this mythical dinosaur, because the Mandalorian was like, I can't get on one of these things. I can't break this creature. And he was like, oh, but the legends, you're Mandalorian, you guys rode the mythical dinosaur, whatever, it's something sore. And I thought, oh, damn, he's talking about the cartoon. Because once again, like even the Mandalorian's rifle is from and was inspired by the original cartoon. When the Mandalorian got the piece of metal, which is part of Mandalore, like their tribe, and he took it and they shaped it into that pauldron. That entire scene was beautifully lit. Like the cinematography in that scene was fantastic. And again, it's like, Dave Filoni did a great job. He directed this. He was one of the writers on this. Obviously, he's part of the Lucasfilm Story Group, and he should have been directed. I don't know why they didn't go to Dave Filoni first for any of these feature films instead of Rowan Johnson, because he really has his pulse on this. And I loved how they, during that sequence when the armor was being pounded and forged, they were cutting in and giving you exposition. So you don't have to have a ton of exposition. That he used to be a farmer, and obviously something happened in his village, was taken over, and he was on the run and all this kind of stuff as a young boy. So like for me, that kind of stuff is great because it tells you things so that they don't have to keep covering it. It's like just a little flashbacks. And, that's something that Star Wars could have used, especially in the new ones, is some flashbacks, some references to old stuff so that people could tie things together. I really, really loved in episode 2 when the Mandalorian, it opens up where he's like sewing himself up like either Rambo did in Rambo. I think it was First Blood when he sewed himself up, or the Predator, when the Predator is all, he screwed himself up in the first film and he's like, sticking himself. And what was really cool was, and I haven't even gotten to this. All right. So I have to say the little baby Yoda, which is what everyone's calling it. Obviously it's whatever Yoda's race was. It's not, I doubt it's Yoda. It's Yoda himself, because obviously it's after Jedi. It's 50, and apparently this guy's like 50 years old, but doesn't speak yet. I love that he was the bounty that they were after. And that he didn't kill him. And there's something to it, but like, I kept saying, is that thing force, is it like a force sensitive, what's the deal with this? And that's the hook. But also, you got your Disney in there too, because, it's almost like the first thing I did when I saw it was like, oh shit, it's like Muppet Babies. Like they're going back and they're doing these things as children or whatever. And what happened, that actually got spoiled for me. I was on Twitter at the hospital while my wife was in labor. And scrolling, and I saw somebody was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've wanted a baby Yoda my whole life. And I looked at it and it was like it was a GIF. So, it was animated, and I was like, oh shit, is that from the Mandalorian? And I was like, fuck. So that kind of got ruined. So I was a little disappointed in that, but, it didn't ruin it that much. I'm really interested in seeing where this is going, because I was really under the idea that after Jedi, Luke was the only Jedi. And obviously there's other force sensitive people all across the galaxy. What the hell is going on with this little baby Yoda that's floating around? And the fact that like, he didn't kill it. Like why, he wants the bounty, but obviously he's going to bond with this thing because it saved his ass from that giant rhinoceros creature that tried to kill him. And it wanted to heal his arm. Like it reached out several times, but he was like, nah, go inside your little thing. I don't want anything to do with you. But it reached out to try to save him, or to try to heal his arm, which he was sewing up himself, which to me was badass. I love the sequence with the Jawas tearing up his ship. And once again, Lucasfilm Story Group, they're referencing things, paying homage. There's the one scene where the Mandalorian is on the side of the sandcrawler as it's going, and they're trying to drive him into the wall of the canyon. And it was right out of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And he finally gets out of the way at the last minute. So you could say it was like the scene in Chewbacca with Solo, but I say no, because it was the Last Crusade that actually inspired that scene too, as well, with the train where he pulls him out of the way at the last minute. Han pulls Chewie out of the way. This was desert on a tank type vehicle, and he's getting ready to hit that side. It was Last Crusade. And then, I feel like, because, I'm 44 years old, a lot of these guys over at Lucasfilm, they're all about my age. They're all fans of the original trilogy. You look at like Jon Favreau and these kind of guys. And, I feel like them, we all grew up watching the 60s Batman movie. And when the Mandalorian's climbing up the side of the walker with his rope that he had shot up, his repelling thing, the Jawas were popping out of windows, just like the 60s Batman show when Batman and Robin are like walking up the thing, and the heads would pop out. It would always be a celebrity or something like that on that show. And it was cool, because they come out and then they're throwing debris at him and everything. And I love that they stripped his ship, although I thought they stripped it pretty, like, it was kind of shocked how quick that the Mandalorian and the Krill guy, how quick they put it back together. Even though he's like, oh, it could take a week or something. He's like, but if you help, it'll only take a few days. And I was like, wow, that was a really fast, like, put that ship back together, because it was completely stripped. But anyway, the idea that the Jawas wanted this egg from that rhinoceros creature to be brought to them in exchange for all his parts back that they had stolen in the first place. And he goes on this journey to do this, and then he brings the egg back, and then they just cut it open and start eating the yolk out of it, and the Jawas are all excited, and they give him all his parts back for his ship, and he puts his ship back together. I mean, like the way, if I just told somebody the story of, hey man, you see when the Jawas ate the egg and all, like, you would have thought, what the hell, that's stupid. But when you watch it in its context, it not only was it great, but it was hilarious. Yeah, I mean, just on and on and on. And I loved during that entire sequence with the sand crawler and the debris coming at him and him being dragged, his cape was getting tattered. And I was like, oh, there's your wear and tear. That's the wear and tear you wanted. Now, a couple of things I wrote down, because I was like, I as I'm watching it, I had to like write some stuff down, because I was like, one thing that's really is not a standout thing for me is the score. I'm not sold on the score. The Mandalorian's theme actually sounds like the music that Rocky runs along the, in Philadelphia, and the people are like crowding around him. Not the actual Rocky theme, but his montage music. That's what it sounded like. Like every time he shows up, it sounded like Rocky's montage music. And I was like, that's not a good score. Like they could have done better than that. They could have given him something that was more memorable, kind of like when Jaws comes up, Jaws is coming. Or Indiana Jones, when he comes up, like Superman, like anything John Williams. I mean, I know you can't get him for everything, but these characters need to have themes and not just music that is just background filler kind of stuff. And I feel like that's what we got with The Mandalorian. And it's only episode 2, so hopefully, it'll get fixed. Look, Dave Filoni's doing a great job. I'm going to wrap it up with this, because I'll cover these episodes as they go along too. But one of the things that stood out to me, and I know like all the fanboys, the people out there, you guys got to suck it up, man. Kathleen Kennedy is the executive producer on this. So if everybody is like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world, you guys have got to understand. I've defended Kathleen Kennedy in other past videos. There's been some missteps, but she's a huge producer in Hollywood, has been a huge producer in Hollywood, some of the biggest projects of all time. And, shit happens in this film industry. I work in the film industry. Her name's on this. You could say Jon Favreau and Filoni and all the other people that are involved with this are the ones really at the helm. But when it comes down to it, Kathleen Kennedy is neck deep in it as well. So if you're loving on this, but you're hating on the other stuff. Now, I did hate The Last Jedi, but I didn't hate it because of Kathleen Kennedy. I hated it because of Rian Johnson and his directing and his story that he came up with and how they handled Luke Skywalker. But I loved Rogue One. Once again, like Kathleen Kennedy made a great decision, to bring in Tony Gilroy to do some reshoots and stuff because from what I understand, the movie was very Saving Private Ryan handheld, which is kind of what Gareth Edwards did with his monster movie. Um, and he did a little bit of it with Godzilla and some of the fighting scenes between the monsters, and that style just didn't line up with everything else, so things had to be changed. Josh Trank, who was supposed to direct the Boba Fett movie, thank God he was never allowed to do it. They had signed him on board, but then fired him or decided not to offer him the Boba Fett movie, and they went in a completely different direction because Josh Trank was on the Fantastic Four, and he screwed the pooch on that. And he actually, when they brought in another director on Fantastic Four, that knucklehead Josh Trank had to sit in a chair and watch somebody else direct his movie. And he was a disaster behind the scenes, just ruining the place that he was living at, which was like I think it was like the governor's mansion or the mayor's mansion of the town that they were shooting in Louisiana. They hooked him up with that, and then his dogs wind up ruining it because they were like 12-hour shooting days on shows, and his dogs were shitting and pissing all over the carpet, because he didn't have anybody coming over to check on him, and he was throwing parties and doing all. So Kathleen Kennedy said, dude, we're not even going to let this guy touch anything Lucasfilm. Great decision. Then you got the two knuckleheads. They can have their cartoon Spider-Verse. It was great. They should stick with animated shit and Lego movies, but stay away from the live action. They were turning Solo into an Ace Ventura type thing that even Alden Ehrenreich was complaining about and didn't want to come out of his trailer because of the way they were making the Han Solo character and portraying him. So she fired their asses too, brought in Ron Howard. And Ron Howard gave us a great movie, but it couldn't sustain the damage of The Last Jedi, and it was released too quickly. So, look, there's been missteps, but I will defend Kathleen Kennedy as a producer for realizing the missteps and correcting those missteps like a producer does. You hire, you fire. That's the way it is. And you right the ship. And if everyone's just jizzing over the Mandalorian, then you have to give her credit for it. Her name is stamped right on that damn thing. Executive producer. So I just want to say, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that one, and that's fine. The Geeks and Gamers guy, all these guys, they're hating on Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah, the Force is female. I get it. There was a lot of that messaging put into these movies and stuff as of recently, but I'm not seeing it on this one. Oh, and Freddie Prinze Jr., yeah, you can kind of go fuck off too, because I noticed that The Mandalorian's rated on Disney Plus TV 14. So they're not even recommending children under 14 see The Mandalorian. So Star Wars is for children. Star Wars is for children, Freddie Prinze Jr. No. Some of the material, like Tauntaun's belly getting split open, or Count Dooku's head getting cut off, or Django's head getting cut off, or Count Dooku's hands being cut off, Luke's hand cut off, Anakin's leg cut off, his legs, then he's just a damn torso crawling with one arm. Look, these movies, yeah, they put elements in them like Jar Jar Binks and things like that. But for the most part, they're kind of, middle school and up teenage movies. They're not, I wouldn't recommend, some of these movies like Rogue One, or, even that in Rogue One, that final battle scene where Darth Vader's just tearing people up, which was amazing. I don't think, 6-year-old, I don't know, man, 10-year-old, 8-year-old, I don't know. It's a different time we're living in, but, Star Wars is definitely not for children. And I stand by that. So anyway, I just have to say that Werner Herzog was fantastic in this. I hope they don't kill his ass in the next. I hope this guy sticks around for a long time. I've loved him in everything he's been in. He's the creepiest son of a bitch ever. Carl Weathers was fantastic. So far, he was only really in one scene, but I loved everything. I hope there's just so much more that's coming down the pike on this thing, and I'm just really excited and can't wait to see where the Mandalorian goes from here. So yeah, man, like I'm totally digging on this. What are your guys' thoughts? Did you guys like the Mandalorian? Let's talk about it in the comments section. Share this video on social media. Twitter, Facebook, things like that. I'm really looking to get your guys' support on this. And yeah, man, I think I've had like since the baby was born on the 12th, I think I've had like maybe 20 hours sleep, and it's already Saturday going on Sunday. You know, new baby, diapers, all this other kind of stuff. So my energy's a little low right now, but I'm still loving on my channel, still loving all the comments and the engagement that people have, and they like what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep on doing it. So anyway, let's talk about it in the comments section, Mandalorian, and we'll see you on the next one.